morning. Welcome to Soul of Travel. I'm so excited today to be joined by Rebecca Braak, who is the founder of Equa Horse Rides, EcuaFina, and Rebecca Adventure Travel. And we got to meet in person here in Denver a few months ago, I guess it's been now, with an event with the Adventure Travel Trade Association. So it's always nice to be able to have met in person and have a little bit of that connection before we have one of these conversations, and it doesn't always happen. So I'm really excited that we have that touch point, and also excited to share about the work that you do in Ecuador with my listeners. So welcome to the show, Rebecca.
Thank you so much, Christine. I'm very happy to be here.
Thank you. Well, to begin, I would just love to turn it over to you to let you introduce yourself and tell our listeners a little bit more about who you are and what you're doing in the space of travel right now.
Yes, definitely. So I am from the Netherlands. I was born in a small village in the eastern part of the Netherlands. Then I had a very nice youth with a lot of horses. We always went competing, eventing, show jumping, dressage. Every single weekend we were somewhere in the country. And at the age of 18, I went studying in Amsterdam, did my master's degrees, MBA. And then I started working in KLM, in the e-commerce department as a project manager, which was an amazing job, an amazing company. But I felt that something was missing. And I think the thing that I was missing were the horses, because it always has been such a big part of me. And in Amsterdam, in the big city, in this corporate life, you don't really have any chance to be with horses. So that is when I decided to take 3 months off and to find a volunteering job with horses somewhere in the world. And you know that there are tons of them in Australia, in America, in Canada, but I wanted to do something a little bit more exotic. So I found one ranch in South America, and that ranch was located in Ecuador. And that's when I decided to fly to Ecuador and to work there on the ranch for a couple of months. It didn't really work out well because the ranch owners were a little bit complicated. I had other expectations and everything. So I loved the part of being at the ranch in the mountains with the horses, training them day in, day out. But with me and the managers, it didn't really work out that well. So after a couple of weeks, I had to go back to Quito, started to learn Spanish, and that's when I decided that I wanted to do horseback riding trips myself. So I bought an old Jeep and I started to do horseback riding trips for the KLM crew. They have 2 hours or 2 days a layover in Quito. So I just went there every single afternoon when they would arrive from Holland, offer my horseback riding trips around Quito. And yeah, that is how everything started. The company was called Equa Horse Rides, Ecuador Horse Rides. And I always made sure to use like the best haciendas, to make sure to use only horses that were taken care of very well. I brought my own helmets, all safety measures, like the Western way of tourism implementing in the Ecuadorian country, horses, culture. So that's when it started, actually, in 2013.
Wow, thank you for sharing that. I think it's interesting how something that's so important to us in our childhood can become the thing that, you know, is so important to us later in life, and we maybe don't foresee that connection or understand how important that's going to be. And as you were talking a little bit, I was thinking about, I just went to Montana, which is where I'm from in the US, and my parents had just bought horses, and I took my daughters and they were learning to ride for the first time. And they kept saying, you know, oh, you can't do this with us because you don't know anything about horses, and all these things that they perceived about me because the person they know has no experience with horses or anything. And my dad was telling them, oh no, your mom rode horses before she could walk. She was sitting on horse in her diaper and bare feet. And they were like, no, not our mom. But just that kind of connection, I think, for them to see that part of me and then that part of my parents, because they also had not known them as like horse riders. They have a ranch, but it was just something really special. And then to see them ride a horse, and that like fear they had initially, because horses are huge and impressive, and they didn't know what to expect. And then like 2 days later, coming out and seeing them with my parents, and they're like trotting around the corral, and they're like, we're trotting. And like it was such a powerful experience. I imagine that when you kind of tie that into travel, there's something really special. I know I've taken, been really lucky to take some beautiful horse rides in the world, and it's such a slow way to move through. And then also there's like this element of trust that is being created between you and the horse, which also kind of extends to the place. Like there's just this beautiful kind of relationship. So I would love to talk to you a little bit more about maybe some of that magic a bit. And like, this seems like it would have been a perfect fit for you as a gateway into tourism, but was it a bit of a surprise?
Well, actually, it was completely because I never thought I would do anything in tourism. I was working in the e-commerce department, and I really loved it to be able to create websites, mobile applications, making the link between all those technical developments and business needs. And so, yeah, I'm actually quite commercial. I really love that point of KPIs. But then I came here to Ecuador and I tapped into a different part of myself again. It was whenever you're riding on a horse, whatever you what you were mentioning as well, is that you're part of nature. You're the animals or the birds, and in the national parks we do have a lot of wildlife, and they're not afraid of you. You're just there. You just have to like completely trust in your horse, and then you go and you see, and you're visiting nature, and they're not afraid of you. And yeah, that has something very magical. And something that I also really like, because I have this, what I told you, this commercial part with more competitive part. I used to compete every single weekend in Holland. And when I came to Ecuador, that was something that I was missing a little bit, because whenever you go on trail rides, it's lovely, but it's kind of slow as well. So you go on a very low pace. Sometimes I was guiding these trips with people that didn't have any experience, so you would have to be very, very slow and careful and everything. So that is when I decided that I also wanted to do something more, yeah, competition wise. So I started to train horses, show jumping horses here in one of the country clubs. And while doing that, they also invited me to train other horses, cross country horses. I had to go on a competition, on a cross country competition in the middle of Ecuador. Not everyone was like, they just spoke Spanish to me. Nobody had a clue what this foreigner was doing in this very remote place. But that's where I met my husband. That is where I met Andres, who is also a horse lover, very passionate about horses. And he was also competing there as an eventer. So it's so strange how your gut feeling like gives you things that you should do, like I don't know what it is. It's just like your feeling that you should do this or you should do that, and then life will bring you opportunities or bring you the moments that you meet your husband. So yeah, that's beautiful.
Yeah. I love that you mentioned kind of trusting your intuition and your gut feeling. That's definitely something I think also gets wrapped up in like wanderlust, or like the idea that we need to travel. But I think it's because there's something waiting for us. And so it's not so much that you need to travel, but you need to literally be somewhere else in the world. And I think that's so many of my guests, they're like, there was just this thing that just kept pulling me to this place that I had no idea why I'd be drawn to, Laos, Ecuador, or, all these places that maybe growing up seemed, maybe you hadn't even heard of them, I guess, and I think that's just such a cool thing that feel like I really believe that the universe has this kind of story for us and gives us these clues. And again, like not ever imagining you would have landed in Ecuador to do this, time on the horse ranch. And then of course, probably never imagining that you're going to be doing this crazy horse experience riding, and then meet your husband in this rural area. And I mean, I think I love people's stories and I love witnessing that come to life. For you, then, you started to really kind of be attached and grow roots in Ecuador. So, how did you go from the offering these horse tours and into really knowing that tourism is a place you wanted to create an impact and start to build a business outside of just horses?
Yeah, that also went very like um, through little paces because the KLM employees, so the pilots and the flight attendants, they were not all into horses. So they would tell me, I would like to go zip lining. Do you know a place where we can go zip lining? Or I want to go hiking. I want to climb some mountains. I want to go biking. So that's when I created different experiences. And I always would go to a place first when to meet the community, to test the food, to go to this very like special places where you have this local experience. So I wouldn't go ever to this very big restaurants or whatever because it doesn't give the feeling of Ecuador, the authentic feeling to me. I was always trying to find something authentic, special that our travelers couldn't find without me. So yeah, that's when I created the day trips, and then from day trips it went to a little bit longer because sometimes they would have like a week or so to stay in Ecuador. And then Galapagos is part of Ecuador, and it's a very special place. So from day trips it went to a little bit longer, and then also to the Galapagos Islands. The KLM people would come with their families or with their friends, and we would arrange the whole trip from Quito to the Amazon to the coast to the Galapagos, and always keeping in mind this authentic experience, this thing that makes it a little bit different than traveling on a normal way, to give the local experience, to have this contact with the community, to have your like special moment instead of just following the crowd, going to the top 10 places and then go home. No, I always want to have this connection with the locals.
Hmm.
And that's when Rebecca Adventure Travel started. And I started it myself, of course, because it was just me. But then I was riding a horse, and people would call me, I need a cruise to the Galapagos. Can you please help me? Like, yeah, of course, but I'm riding a horse right now. So it was kind of difficult. And then I had to hire some people. And yeah, little by little, we started growing. A lot of my travelers really helped me by writing reviews on TripAdvisor. So yeah, we started growing. I made the website myself in the evenings because yeah, that's what I learned at KLM. So I knew a little bit about how to create a website with e-commerce and that stuff. And yeah, it was little by little. And before the pandemic, we had almost 20 people at my office just designing very special trips and marketing, of course, and yeah, everything that you need in the company. And we also have a very nice base of guides, local guides. So I have one special guide. His name is Angel. He is from a very rural community about 3 hours from Quito. He didn't know any English before he came to Quito. And he started to learn little by little by cleaning a hostel. So he found a job cleaning a hostel. And then while he was there, he was talking to the travelers coming in. And he was so passionate about this whole tourism area and this way of showing his country to the travelers that he started to learn English. Now he owns a car. He got his guiding license, and he's one of our main guides actually. So yeah, to be able to give these passionate people a chance to work and to make that connection between foreign travelers and Ecuadorian locals, that really gives me a lot of passion.
Yeah. As you're explaining that kind of, I guess, intimacy really of travel that you were trying to create, that's I was thinking about how I try to put that into words as well, and it's really such a feeling that it's so hard. So I love that you have this kind of passion for also the marketing and website building and have that skill set, because for me as a business owner, bridging those two things is very difficult. But going back to like that feeling of travel and what you were trying to allow people to experience. I think that's what so many of the people that I really resonate with when I talk about travel, it's that thing. And it really is hard to put into words, but it's the thing that you most want other people to experience. So it's really important. But that connection and that like slow moment of finding yourself actually where you are. And I think the way that mass travel often portrays us traveling is kind of having our same experience somewhere else. And so it's like we have this backdrop of Ecuador, but we're still being who we are there. And I think then what some of us have discovered is that you can like push that away and then actually become a different version of yourself where you are when you really kind of lean in and get maybe a little uncomfortable because you might not have all of your conveniences or all of your comfort met, but you're really able to be somewhere else and enjoy it and embrace it. And I think that's so important when we travel. I think more and more people are leaning into that. Like they don't necessarily crave an all inclusive experience somewhere where everything's super curated for them. They want to be able to explore and connect and really be a part of the destination.
Yeah.
So I would love to talk to you a little bit more about that. I think both you and I would hope that this is what travelers are seeking in the future. So how does that land with you, and how are you kind of working to create the experiences that you think people who are seeking that type of travel are looking for?
Yeah, I think what you're mentioning has a lot to do with immersive. So you have to immerse yourself in this local culture and just leave who you are behind, where you're coming from. And whenever you get to Ecuador, you leave the plane, just get in with a blank paper, with just make sure that you perceive everything that you see and in a different way, and not like especially with the reference that you already had because you were doing this or you were doing that or you had a certain type of family. Or no, just try to get in like as blank as you can to be able to absorb all this different kind of experiences, this different kind of cultures, and all the lessons that you can have in a certain destination. And I think Ecuador is a very special country because it's small. It's very small. It's 3 times the Netherlands, and you have 4 different regions. So you have the Amazon rainforest, the Andean mountains, the Pacific coast, and the Galapagos Islands. And in all of the regions, you have a very different type of culture as well. So if you go to the Amazon, you can be together with the shaman, and you can be together with these cultures also. Yeah, a lot of times led by ladies, because the women in those Amazonian cultures are very strong. They are the ones who would take care of the family, would take care of the village, would take care of the food, and the men, they would go out for hunting for weeks. So yeah, it's a very different type of community.
Mhm.
And then whenever you go to the Andes region, to the Andean region, you have I don't know if you've ever saw these like pictures of Quechua people. So you have this typical beautiful ladies with the dresses and with the long hair, and also the men that have this very beautiful long hair. They're making a certain type of music, like the mountain music, and there are different energies going around there as well, because they believe a lot in the solar system, in nature, and you have these celebrations where you would celebrate the harvest of a certain year, the Inti Raymi it's called. So, and then whenever you go to the Pacific coast, yeah, you have another culture, and then whenever you go to the Galapagos Islands, you have again another. It's not so much culture over there; it's a lot more wildlife. So I would say you have this energy of being together with the animals, of being just a visitor in the kingdom of the animals, in the kingdom of evolution. So all these different surroundings, they really give you another like perspective on your trip. Maybe yeah, sometimes we have these groups, and then we send also an holistic coach, or we send life coaches. So in this way, you experience the destination, but by talking about it, or by journaling, or combining yoga, or combining a bit more wellness aspects, nutrition aspects in these trips, it gives you a different perspective. And I think that's what traveling is all about. It's not about what you're saying, a mass tourism trip going to Cancun or so, because everybody can do it, and it doesn't really matter if you're eating your steak in your hometown or in Cancun. For me, traveling is more about this whole transformational experience, to dive into these new cultures, to try to learn something from it.
Mm. I couldn't really agree more. I love that. And, you did mention just really briefly adding an element of bringing in life coaches and, bringing in wellness and kind of that inner journey, which is my happy place. That's when I set out to create my company. That's what I wanted to do, was really kind of bridge, in my mind at that time, was kind of like a retreat and adventure travel. So I wanted that kind of like inner excavation that you get in a retreat, as well as the connection and the sisterhood, because often those things for me were done among women, as well as the kind of power of adventure travel, the overcoming fears that kind of already bring you into that space where you can learn more about yourself. For me, it felt like a really natural fit. So, when you mentioned bringing a life coach, or some sort of guide for that emotional part of the journey, I think that's when travel can become really, really powerful. So, why, what about that really drew you in? And I know you also create some trips that are for women as well. Like, what have you seen is the benefit of adding those elements to travel, especially in Ecuador?
Yeah, I think it also comes from my background, because yeah, whenever I got my children, it was Jose Miguel was born in 2019 and Sophie in 2021. So it was around the pandemic, and we just had a new house, and yeah, it was such a strange, yeah, like I heard somebody said in your podcast, it's like a trauma for the whole world. And it also felt a little bit for me like a trauma, because from one day to the other, I didn't have any like income anymore. We had a lot of problems with all those travelers that were about to come, but they had to change their trips because they couldn't fly. The airport was closed for 4 months here in Quito. Then my mom got sick in the Netherlands, so she got COVID. She was for 6 weeks, like very, very bad. And I had this fear that what if something goes wrong with my mother? What if I have to go there and I cannot fly anymore? And I just gave birth to Jose Miguel, so yeah, I had a small baby at home and new house, so it didn't have anything like very well arranged, and so it was a very hectic time. And I have the feeling that as a mom and as a yeah, as a founder of my company, as a business owner, sometimes I just really need to have time for myself to be able to digest and to put everything into order again, and to take me out of my day-to-day life, and have somebody to talk to me in a different way, and to yeah, how would you say that, to get my things back on track. And what really helps me is when I go to travel shows, for example. I love that because I can talk about my passion. I can meet new people. I'm traveling. When I went to Colorado to this travel show where we met, we went to Boulder the weekend before, so we could go out into the mountains. And yeah, that type of energy is something that is really important to me. And I noticed that my friends have the same. So whenever I go back to Holland, and you see that they're kind of stuck in their own day-to-day life, and their own thoughts, their own way of living, and I think whatever we need as women, my generation especially, I think before this, like a couple of generations before me, we didn't have time to think about how we would like to live or what are our priorities, or we just had to go and do it, yeah, do our day to day. But right now we do have the time to evaluate, to think about whatever we're doing, and if that is okay, if that's aligned with your values, if that feels okay, if that gives you a good, yeah, if your intuition is okay with that, or yeah, you should look for something else, or different types of roads. And so in the pandemic, we had, yeah, a very big problem with Rebecca to travel, because there wasn't anybody traveling. And I saw all these communities around us, the local communities, that they were also struggling. And yeah, well, my husband has a good job, so we were fine financially. But all these communities, they weren't fine, because they would need tourism to be able to sell their products, to yeah, to get the tourists in, and to, I don't know, for restaurants or for local weaveries or for the markets. And that's when I decided that I wanted to help these communities, because they've been so good to me before, bringing all those travelers there and always giving this lovely, authentic experience, that I wanted to do something back. And that is where I could like build a bridge between my background, so between the Netherlands, between my knowledge about e-commerce, and yeah, these local communities that really needed my help. So I started a company which is called EcuaFina, and what we are doing there is that we create Ecuadorian handicrafts, but beautiful ones, to like often handmade. You see one on like there, one of the blankets behind me. And with that type of art, to maintain that type of art in the communities, we create these products, and then the products we can ship all over the world. After the pandemic, we also opened a shop in the Netherlands, so physical shop where you can go and buy these products. And yeah, I really have the feeling that it drives me on a different way, because whenever you see those people, those communities being able to sell their products, they're proud, yeah, they're like their culture into my culture, yeah, it gives a very nice feeling.
Yeah, I love that. And I think as you were kind of sharing that experience, and thank you for doing so, of kind of what the pandemic was like emotionally, and really resonating with that sense of trauma. I mean, I think it was such a powerful force that so many of us can tap into that same feeling, no matter what our experience was. I think many of us were having that same feeling and that emotional response. Um, and then having a business like tourism, so much like you, I had fully launched my business in February of 2020. So I had the same the same thing happening. I basically the next month canceled all of the trips that I had
Oh,
finally had planned, and I had like, now what do we what do we do now? And really, for me, I think because maybe the way I've traveled so much in my life, I started thinking about all the people you were mentioning, who I've connected with when I'm traveling, these not big hotels and airlines and cruise companies. Like, I'm like, they're fine. But these people who really rely on each tour that comes to their village, and how that changes their entire trajectory of their life and their ability to have an income, and how impactful that was. And for me, that was really where Soul of Travel came from, because I knew I had this kind of um, group of colleagues, if you could call them that all have companies who move through places the same way. And I knew that they were going to be thinking about those people as well. And that's why I wanted to start having these conversations, is to really understand, what that impact was like, and what these people were going to do. And there was so much innovation happening so quickly around how to support these communities, that I just thought, oh my gosh, whatever happens, however we get through this, on the other side, something really special is going to be being created by deepening these connections with the people on the ground that we're working with. And so I love that, you know, your response to this was EcuaFina and creating another business that really involves local communities. And for me, I think working with artisan groups and especially women, this is something I build into all of my itineraries as well, because I think it's such a great way, going back to connection, to tap into a place, because especially with weaving, it's so unique to every area, every village, like every piece is a story. And so when you meet with the artisans, you can understand how they get their local dyes and what their patterns mean and what that represents. And it's all really important. And I think, you know, it's easy for us when we see something like, oh, that's beautiful. It seems like really high quality and I really appreciate it. But like going that next step further and understanding like why it's important, I think is so powerful. And it also really empowers women to preserve their cultural tradition. So I would love to talk to you a little bit about, you know, why that was also important as an extension of, you know, what you're trying to create with connection and cultural preservation and, you know, bringing that storytelling into travel.
Yeah, because a lot of times I have the feeling that whenever we were doing the trips, or when we're still doing the trips, people go home with so many experiences, with so many, sometimes even life-changing experiences. And there are also a lot of people that cannot ever travel to Ecuador due to maybe economic situations or maybe family situations, or they're just afraid of flying so long to a certain country that they don't know of. So that is when I wanted to give something of Ecuador, something this, yeah, a product that is very rich in terms of culture, in creativity, because what you're saying is true. Every piece has a different story. Every region has different symbols and different ways of weaving, different colors. So I wanted to give the Western world, because that is my like perspective, that's where I'm coming from, a piece of Ecuador, so that they would at least understand a little bit that what you would find here. The rich culture, the rich colors, the bright colors. For all the YouTube viewers, I'm gonna show you this beautiful blanket behind me. I have these blankets. You can put it either on the floor or on the wall, and whenever you see it, it's like, wow! It gives me energy. It gives me like these bright ideas. This ganas, you would say in Spanish, like that you just really want to do something. And yeah, that feeling is something that I want to share with my community in Holland, worldwide, everywhere that people are interested in ethnical design or native design, because it means a lot. A blanket like this is made with a beautiful family. The guy, his name is Inti, and we went there a couple of weeks ago to do a shooting, to take some pictures, and he was so proud on his family like business, because it's often family. The weavery itself, it's mainly done by men, because it's very hard. It's physically very hard to do. But then the women, they would finish the product. So yeah, they would make sure that all the details are fine. They would pack the products. They brush it, because it's also a way of brushing to give the final touch on a certain product. And this proud, or this yeah, this feeling that Inti gave me. He's the son of his parents, and the parents were making this, and he's telling me, I was willing to go into the city to study something else, because I knew that, yeah, the weavery would not be anything like very positive for the future. It wouldn't give me a bright future. But whenever my parents are doing well, whenever they find some good clients, whenever they can continue practicing their art, I can maybe also do the same. And I might be able to stay here in my village. I might be able to also learn how to make these beautiful products, and then also like contribute and not having to say goodbye to my family, because nobody wants to leave their family, especially in Ecuador. It's they have such a strong family relation, and yeah, they prefer to stay together every single day, you know? So whenever you see Ecuadorians abroad, sometimes with the music or sometimes with their products, it's not because they want to, it's because they have to. They have to sell those products abroad to be able to to pay their bills, to pay for their children, to pay for their parents. So whenever we can help them to buy the products in their original village, in their surroundings, in their community, and be able to ship it to our communities, then I think you would save a lot of problems. You would they don't have to go abroad anymore. They can just stay in their own villages. They can be happy together. They can preserve their cultures. It's way better for the children as well, because imagine these small kids, they would have to stay with their grandmothers and grandfathers because their parents would have to go abroad to work. So it's a big trauma that you're generating there. It's very hard for them. So whenever you can make the bridge, use e-commerce. Make sure that you have like the communication, tell the story from their village, from their authentic community. Bring it to our community, bring it to our Western world where we appreciate this type of stories. Yeah, it's a win-win, I would say.
Yeah, and I think thank you for mentioning kind of the process of what it looks like to sustain that business, because I think that's something else that unless you've traveled and you're kind of understanding these great distances that many families travel to bring artisan goods to markets even within their own country, let alone anywhere else, is such it's very challenging. And I think that was something when I first started traveling and witnessing that was something that I thought, gosh, there's something else that we could be doing here. And I remember being in this village in Uganda that it had taken a tremendous effort to get to this village. And we walked into, this woman invited us into our home, and she had just like mountains of these beautiful handmade baskets. I mean, just so many of them. And you could like smell the needles and the grasses that had made the baskets, and it was kind of dark in there, but she would pull them out and they were just stunning. And I thought, where on earth are these going? Because there's, maybe a dozen people in this village who all probably also know how to make these beautiful baskets. And I just thought, how are these getting somewhere else? And in that moment, I was trying to figure out kind of again how to get adventure travel involved in this. And they're the only people probably coming to some of these communities, that are very hard to get to, and the travelers would be very interested to actually meet these men and women that are making these and understand that how they came about, and then would of course want to purchase these products. And so for such a long time I've been trying to think about how does that commerce happen. So I love that you are really helping to create that opportunity, and like you said, allow families to stay together, because it really is important, and it becomes really difficult to try to figure out how to do this. And then also, like you said, younger generations are leaving, and so not only are they leaving their families, but it's people that it's this skill that's being lost through these younger generations. So I think there's so many reasons why supporting artisans and connecting them to travelers, I think, really is important in this kind of larger ecosystem of preserving cultures. So thank you for sharing that. Before you go, I wanted to talk to you about one other project that you shared with me about working with a local school, and that's been really important to you guys, to your brand and to your community and what you want to create. So can you share a little bit about that?
Yes, definitely. I think all change should come from the younger generation, and whenever you want to get this change going on, you have to support education. So I'm very small, so what we can do is just like almost nothing, but at least it is something. And if we can make the life better of a couple of children, then I'm already happy. So there is a school, a local school next to our house, actually in the same village. There's about 400 children between 4 and 16 years old, and they have classes there, and everything is fine. But whenever we started to come there, the bathrooms weren't working well. They didn't have a library. They didn't have like any computer. So we signed like a collaboration with the Ministry of Education that we are long-term partners for the school. You call it padrinos. And so what we try to do is like every 3 months or something, we do an event. So before the school starts, we would help them to get everything in order, to make sure that the bathrooms are working, make sure everything is clean, painted, make sure that the playground is working, to make sure that the kids like have a good place to go, that they have a safe place to go and to learn. And then we had Dia de Niño, which is a very important day in Ecuador. It's like the Children's Day. And we donated a mini library. So about 500 books we got from different libraries here in Quito, also from private sponsors who donated those books. And we gave them together with a computer. So yeah, they have their own mini library right now. And to see the look on the faces of these kids is just, nah, I cannot explain it to you, because some of them they didn't see like a normal nice children's book in their lives. So whenever they open the book, it's like, is this mine? Can I read it? Like, yeah, this is yours. Please use it. Please read. It's amazing. Wow, it's like there's a world going open for them. And the school director, she asked me, because there are so many things that we have to do. Because in Ecuador, there are these public schools and there's not money for anything. You should be happy if you have classes of about 30 people, but it's all mixed. So you don't know, what they actually learn. The teachers are usually not that into it because they earn almost nothing. So yeah, it's not a great system, but it is what it is. So we have to deal with this, and yeah, we just have to make it. If we can try to make it a little bit better, we should do it, I would say. So the school director, she asked me, or she told me, like 1 on every 4 children, 25% of the kids, they go to school hungry. They don't get breakfast at night whenever they go home. Sometimes there's food, but sometimes there's no food at all. So she asked me my help to create like this food program to make lunches for the kids, make sure that the moms of those children come into school to make to prepare good lunch. And there's even a program from UNICEF here, so we could like do something together. And that is what I wanted to share with you, to see if there's somebody listening who would like to help us to start this project to create lunches for these 400 children every single day. The one part, and then the other part, I just wanted to invite you to read about these kids, to read about their progress, to read about everything that we can do for them, or maybe their teachers that want to come over to teach them some English because they don't know anything. We are involved in these 400 kids, and we try to make little steps to create a brighter future for them. But it's so every single piece of help and every idea is very much appreciated here.
Yeah, thank you. And thank you again for sharing that. And I also love where you started with that idea that, you mentioned that you're small and that your impact can only match, the power that you have behind you. And yet I think also acknowledging that that's okay is really important, because I think sometimes when you're looking at impact driven work, the scope of what needs to be done and what change needs to happen can kind of stop us in our tracks. And I think it's really important that anybody who's interested in working to create a positive impact just starts where they can start. And so that will probably be small. And I think, looking at that in the context of being a more sustainable or responsible traveler, or having a business that is operating in a more sustainable or responsible way, like it's okay to start where you're at and build from there. And so I love that you mentioned that, because I just think it's really important to acknowledge that. And also, I think we do draw in the people that we need to, if we're going back to the magic of the universe, to help us bring these things that are really important to life. So I appreciate you sharing that. Rebecca, before we go, I'll just have you share how my listeners can find you, and then I have a few rapid fire questions to end our conversation.
Great, thank you.
And what's the best website or way for them to reach you?
Well, we have Instagram, we have LinkedIn, we have Pinterest. So anyway, searching for EcuaFina, searching for Rebecca Adventure Travel, or just searching for my name, Rebecca Braak, you will find a lot. We also have very nice videos on our YouTube channel about the artisans. For example, this family of Inti, what I was mentioning about, you can find him on a YouTube channel. And I hope that way you can identify yourself a little bit with what Ecuador is all about.
Yeah, thank you. Okay, first question is, what are you reading right now?
Nothing.
Maybe a favorite children's book.
No, I'm sorry. I have two small children, three businesses. So no, right now I'm listening to podcasts. I love podcasts. So whenever I'm driving, there's some podcasts about traveling, of course, but there's also podcasts about like female only like entrepreneurs, and yeah, that's really something that I like.
Yeah, I love podcasts, and also Audible. I resisted it because I was a true, I felt my worth came from my reading, but I also have 3 children, so I realized that sometimes my information and my entertainment and education has to be given to me, and I can't always forget myself. So I can.
You have to accept that as well. It's fine. For now, it's fine. I heard it's on your face, so yeah.
I'm coming out of it. So if that gives you any optimism, I'm at the point where I finally feel like I have a little bit of time back in my life. But okay, the next, what is always in your suitcase or backpack when you travel?
My journal. So I always bring my journal, my notebook, and I make sure that I write everything down.
To sojourn is to travel somewhere as if you live there for a short while. Where is a place that you would still love to sojourn?
I really want to go to Australia and to New Zealand, because this way how nature, I've never been there, but I have the feeling that how nature is involved in their day-to-day lives is something that I'm really curious about. And also the way that it's still very Western, but also with kids, I'm looking forward to that. And actually, we're going to Australia and New Zealand in January for 2 months with an RV. So.
Excellent. Oh my gosh, that's going to be amazing for you.
Mm-hmm.
I'll have to be in touch with you, because that's a potential place on my trip I mentioned to you with my 3 girls around that time, but everything is still kind of very much in motion for that section. So I'll have to let you know if we might be there. What is something you eat that immediately connects you to a place you've been?
Ceviche. So I've never had ceviche before in my life, but when I came to Ecuador, that was the first really local dish that I had. And it's so delicious. It's like a cold fish soup. It's starting to become more popular as well in the US and in Europe. And every region in Ecuador has its own type of ceviche. So that's what I really like.
Who was a person that inspired or encouraged you to set out and explore the world?
Charles Darwin.
That is a good nod.
Mm-hmm.
I love that. If you could take an adventure with one person, fictional or real, alive or past, who would it be?
with Jackie Kennedy.
Oh, I love that as well. Thank you. The last one, Soul of Travel, is a space to really recognize women in the tourism industry. Who is one woman you admire and would love to mention here?
Yeah, this is such a bad answer, but I'm just so focused on my own. I have the feeling that I'm just living under a stone, and I cannot come up with a single lady right now. I really have the feeling that we're part of this Women Travel Associate, Women Travel Leaders,
Mm-hmm.
and there are so many inspiring women that have done so many positive things in tourism. So for me, it's impossible to choose one and to have her like as my example or something. I really enjoy to talk with all different type of women, so I can, from every interview or from every chat, you can learn something.
Yeah,
That's what I like.
I agree. It is hard to choose one person. And you mentioned women travel leaders. So for our listeners, if you're not familiar, they're one of our amplification allies, and Janine Cohen and Catherine Gallagher founded that community. And it's been a really great place to be, not only just to be surrounded by a community of incredibly passionate and talented women, but also to just learn all of these different things about the industry. And I kind of mentioned before, like, this is not my strong suit, this is where I am. And obviously all of us have that, and within that community we can pool one another as resources. And I think it's been so great to just see how collaborative and valuable community is. So thank you for mentioning that space. I think it's such a great one. And for people listening that have their own businesses, women who are in the industry, if you aren't a part of it, definitely you can reach out to Rebecca or myself, and I'm sure we could tell you more about it. But well, thank you so much for being here, for sharing about Ecuador, and for sharing your passion for connecting people really to the true essence of the country. And I hope that our paths cross soon there.
Definitely, I'm sure of it. Yeah, it's gonna. Thank you so much. It was lovely to talk together, and then a little bit more deeper level than the usual podcast or usual interview. And I really have the feeling whenever you are like a female entrepreneur, sometimes you can feel a little bit lonely because you are so focused on your own things to manage your home, your kids, your work, your everything. So whenever you can relate to women like you, or yeah, what you're mentioning, the women travel leaders, really helps. And yeah, we have to be a bit more like sisters and yeah, grow together. So thank you so much for giving me this opportunity.
Thank you. I appreciate it.